For more, we can speak to Scott Lucas, professor of U.S. and international politics at University College Dublin. Hello to you, Scott. Your first reactions when you saw the news that Damascus has fallen?
My first reaction was a personal one, and that is having gotten to know so many people inside Syria, having gotten to know so many Syrians who had to flee the country, having known many Syrians who are dead, who didn't see this day. It is hoping that for those who have survived, for those who have made it past the hundreds of thousands of deaths, the 11 million displaced in the country, that they indeed have a shot at a better future, a better political future, a social future, and a future where they'll finally feel secure in their own country.
Yeah, a lot of celebrating in Syria. That much is clear. When the HTS arrived in the capital, the only gunfire that was heard were celebratory gunshots. No signs of resistance from the regime forces, not even at their posts. Does the HTS coalition, is it broad enough to keep the country together?
Well, that's what we're going to see in the days, the weeks, even the months to come. And I would just simply start with the basics. The first is that while HTS, territorial al-Sham, this Islamist group is very significant, it is not the only group that was involved in the northern offensive, that you had at least 12 different factions that were involved there, and that you also had the southern group of rebels who only formed a few days ago or reformed, and that brings in different groups. So there is a wide diversity of Islamist, secular groups that are involved here, some of whom have been fighting for years. Some of them have exterior sponsors. I think Turkey will be quite important. I think what we're seeing so far, and it is early days, is not just in Damascus, but in Aleppo last week, in Hama, that there has been an emphasis on providing security, on keeping the utilities going, on keeping businesses going, on keeping life going, in other words. Will that last? We can't guarantee it, but I think there is at least a desire there amongst the variety of factions, which is to get a temporary administration in place so that you at least begin to rebuild the country. There will be hard politics ahead, but for those of you people who are saying this can never work, I'll just remind them that you've had 54 years of a family regime that didn't work for so many Syrians, that led to so many deaths and led to so much destruction, that at least to give Syrians a hope under this diverse range of groups, there can be a better future for all ethnic, religious groups across the country. That's important. I'll add one note beyond that, and that is there is a specific issue, however, to watch, which is the question of the Turkish-backed rebels versus the U.S.-backed Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in the northeast of the country. President Erdogan has tried to attack those Kurds in the past to try to wipe out their autonomous government. I think it's important at this point that Turkey does not try to use its rebels to attack the Kurds, especially given the uncertainty over U.S. policy with Donald Trump coming into office.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Donald Trump going to be taking over the White House in January. He's a noted isolationist. He's already said we should not get involved, but this Sunday, we heard the U.S. saying it will maintain its presence in eastern Syria to prevent a resurgence of the Islamic State. Help us try to make sense of what the U.S. will be doing in the weeks and months to come.
What you've seen this morning from the U.S. Pentagon is a very firm statement to push back on Trump and to give a signal to his advisors. And that is that those U.S. forces have been in northeast Syria now for almost a decade, not only to stand against the Islamic State, who still operate in cells in that area, not only to stand against Iran, who is a major presence in that area, but to protect the Kurdish autonomous government that is there. If those U.S. troops are removed, that Kurdish government and their forces will be at immediate threat. They'll be at threat from Turkey if President Erdogan decides to attack again, as he did in 2019. And how does that tie into Donald Trump? Let's get specific. In 2018, Donald Trump told President Erdogan in a phone call, oh, yes, I'll withdraw all American troops. The Pentagon stood against that. In 2019, Donald Trump, in a phone call with President Erdogan, gave him a green light to attack the Syrian Kurdish areas, to the dismay of the Pentagon. What you're seeing now is going to be a bureaucratic effort within Washington to contain Trump, to protect those Kurds.
Many people in the capital, Damascus, still trying to comprehend the rapid events that we've seen over these past 2 weeks. What brought about the HTS's success of its offensive? Is it linked to the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon?
I think the unexpected success of this rebel offensive after, remember, almost 14 years of the uprising, was because the Assad regime was a paper force. It was a paper political force. It had a country which was in economic disarray, and it had no functioning military per se. It was propped up by three elements: Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah. Russia is overstretched because of the invasion of Ukraine, now almost 3 years old. Iran has serious domestic issues and had suffered from Israeli attacks, including targeted assassinations of its military commanders. And Hezbollah had been decimated by the Israeli assault, which killed its leader Hassan Nasrallah and other senior commanders. So when those three groups either did not have the ability or chose not to come in to support Assad, the door was open. The rebel offensive 11 days ago was only supposed to take part of the Aleppo province. But when they found that those bases had no Hezbollah defenders per se, when Iran didn't step in, and when the Assad regime forces fled, that's when the pattern started, from Aleppo city to Hama city to Homs and now to Damascus.
And can you give us an update on sort of like what this humanitarian situation is like in Syria?
The humanitarian situation is one where you actually can go back years before this offensive, where you had an opposition area which kept itself going with the rebel groups in control, including HTS, backed by Turkey. There will be an attempt in the north to expand that zone to make the country run, not just to get humanitarian aid, but to try to be self-sustaining. There will be a challenge there, but I think there'll be an even bigger challenge in the former Assad regime areas, which, because of economic mismanagement, corruption, and the wartime economy, are a basket case. The Syrian currency was 47 to 1 in 2011. It is now 15,000 to 1 officially, and it's weaker than that. So there's going to have to be a lot of hard work by not just the rebels, but by civil society groups, by technocrats, to provide the basics to Syrians. And there will have to be international support to try to not take over Syrian institutions, but to back Syrian institutions, financial, business, agricultural, manufacturing, as they try to make the long haul in rebuilding.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. Scott Lucas, joining us from Birmingham. Thank you.
Thank you.